Have you ever wondered what would happen if you could increase the happiness of your workforce by 1%? Or whether you will be happier in the age of AI? Our next speaker is a multi-best-selling author on topics of AI and happiness, and the former chief business officer of Google's moonshot factory, Google X. Here to challenge us to redefine our formula for success and share a vision for the future where happiness powers growth, please welcome to the stage, Mo Gawdat.
Cause I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel.
Somehow this song follows me everywhere. I just don't know why. This is tea, not coffee as it's supposed to be. Just in respect to the place. I'm very, 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 very grateful to be with you. The team that's organizing this is incredible. So, you know those events where you just feel the energy, and I think that really helps. Some events are so stressful. Oh my God. I think life in general is becoming very stressful. Can I ask who believes that this has been one of the most stressful years of your life? Oh, look at the enthusiastic hands. It has been, for me, for sure, the most, this year has been out to get me, let's just put it this way, right? And it's quite interesting, you know, quite a few of my friends, I can actually think of very few of my friends who haven't had events that were incredibly stressful. And for some reason, I write about stress. Okay, lucky. No, but the idea is, I think it's a bit of external stuff. You know, the whole geopolitical landscape, the events are happening around the world, the economy. You know, every now and then we get a reminder that the climate's not very happy with us. This whole AI thing and the uncertainty around it. Then, of course, you go to work and then your boss is annoying. And your colleagues are doing things that you don't want them to do. And then you go back home and your partner's boss was annoying, so now you have to... It's quite interesting. But when I worked on Unstressable, I worked on Unstressable with Alice Law. I don't know if you know Alice. Alice is just incredible. She's a young British author who had a story of, I think she had all of the ingredients of being stressed all at the same time between age 21 and 23. And so Alice brings to Unstressable what I don't have. I'm a brainiac, unfortunately. I see the world in numbers, believe it or not, way better than I see it in words. And Alice is this very feminine, spiritual side of the book, which actually makes the book, in my view, my best work, I think, or our best work. But my bit of Unstressable started with the idea of, can I even solve that problem? Like when Alice was talking about it as an idea for a book to write together, I was like, I don't even know if that's solvable, right? Remember, I come from the corporate world where we are taught by Harvard Business Review, where someone stands on the cover of the magazine in a striped suit and basically says, oh, people perform their best results when they're stressed. I'm like, what an idiot, seriously. And somehow this can make the headline and we believe it, right? When in reality, by the way, guys, I don't have a clock and that can really worry me. Is there a clock here? Someone should wave when we're 25 minutes in so that I don't run overtime. So basically, I believe people perform their best work when they're in amazing teams, when they're in flow, when they're inspired. You know, it depends on how you define work. If work is to move boxes, maybe pushing them a little bit will move a couple of boxes more. But if it's to create a beautiful piece of art or a beautiful, you know, kind of connection to people, or you know, to deal with customers, all of that basically demands other things other than stress. Stress, as a biological response, is designed to run away from a tiger. That's our biological machinery, right? And to imagine that for us to get the best out of our teams, we need them to keep running away from tigers all the time, imaginary tigers, believe it or not, is actually almost like unacceptable when you think about it. Anyway, Alice says, right, let's write about stress. I say, okay, let me think about this. And of course, being the person that I am, the first thing that comes to my mind in stress is physics. I apologize, I know this is not the room for physics, but if you remember in elementary physics, when we were maybe, I don't know, 6, 8, I don't know when you learned elementary physics, they taught you that stress was the, what an object experiences when you apply an external force to it, right? But that the stress was not equal to the force, it was equal to the force divided by the cross-section of the object, right? The example they gave us in the Middle East, which I eventually realized was not taught in other schools around the world, was that this is why the camel's hoofs don't, don't sink in the sand. And I'm like, yeah, I can see that, right? Even though I had never seen a camel by the time. But anyway, the idea is that the camel is a ton of weight, but you distribute that across 4 big hoofs. And then the stress on every square centimeter of the hoof is not that high, so the camel doesn't sink in the sand. In humans, so basically in physics, stress is force divided by square area, right? In humans, stress is the challenges that you face divided by, if you want, your square area, your skills, your resources, your abilities to deal with the stress, okay? And that gave me a very, very, very hopeful outlook on the idea of writing about stress, because in that case, while the external stressors are not always within your control, by the way, sometimes they are, okay, you have control over the square area. You can focus your abilities and skills and network and so on and so forth, not to just create more and more and be more productive and make more pounds in your bank account, but also to live a stress-free life. You can direct yourself in that direction, and then stress becomes a lot more manageable if you want. So in that case, stress is the sum of all the stressors you face divided by the sum of all your skills and abilities and resources to deal with them, right? So you can also, by the way, see that this didn't require physics, because in reality, things that freaked me out when I was 20, when I became 30, I managed to deal with them. When in my 40s, I dealt with them with ease. And then, honestly, when I face them in my 50s, I laugh. Like, I was ever stressed about that. Why was I ever stressed about that, right? Not because the challenge changed, but because the square area changed. My skills, my abilities, my network, my resources, and so on. Right. So how about that guy that basically says stress is good for you? I mean, in a way, he's not lying. Huh? Stress is good for you when it's used within context, right? So there's no denying that if a tiger shows up, cortisol in your bloodstream followed by adrenaline is a very good idea. We want that, right? And actually, when you really think about it, the visual you want to imagine is the Incredible Hulk, right? You see that green, massive, hulk of a man because of cortisol, too much cortisol, if you want. The research will show you, however, research of one of my dear friends, Dr. Jill Balti-Taylor, basically shows that cortisol in your blood reconfigures you completely, like almost makes a different human out of you for 90 seconds, only 90 seconds. And then within 90 seconds, cortisol is flushed out of your bloodstream, and you then have to refer to your intellect, believe it or not, to your prefrontal cortex, to your rational brain, to analyze the situation and see and assess if you need another shot of cortisol or not, right? So every 90 seconds, you're supposed to look at the situation around you in a microsecond. This is not a conscious event. And then you basically ask yourself, is there a further reason for fight or flight? Should I continue to stress this body? Right? And as you get another shot of cortisol, you can continue to be stressed. The problem in the modern world, when you really think about it, is that, how do I say this? There are no tigers, they're just emails, really, okay? Right? And so interestingly, when you go through your rational prefrontal cortex, you look at the email and it's still there, right? And you're still stressed. And you keep injecting yourself with stress hormones, sometimes for another 90 seconds, sometimes for another 90 minutes, sometimes for another 90 days. And I will tell you openly, sometimes for a lifetime, okay? Now, that is using stress out of context, okay? Out of context first and foremost, because there is actually no threat to your life, okay? And two, because you keep renewing the lease on it in ways that can keep you stressed for a very long time. And the idea of being stressed for a very long time is one of the three ways we break. So just that, just like they say, and by the way, it's true, huh? It doesn't have to be a tiger, huh? You can have a presentation on Thursday and you're a little stressed about it. That makes you perform better. That's wonderful, okay? But then the problem is there is use in stress within that context. But if you keep stress or use stress the wrong way or be triggered by the wrong things to be stressed, you end up breaking. And I know if you haven't experienced that yourself, I know that you know a lot of friends that have either burnt out or really broke down completely. And I say there are three reasons why we break down under stress. One of them is outside our control. I have to acknowledge that. One of them is trauma, okay? And trauma in the book, in the book, we define the sources of stress in 4 quadrants. We call them a ton of stress, T-O-N-N, okay? Basically external or internal. So is it from outside you or inside you, okay? And is it major in size or small in size? Okay, so if it's major and from outside you, it's called trauma. Okay, if it's major and from inside you, it's called obsession, the T-O. Okay, obsession is, for example, how we have, some of us will have a script around our parents, for example, and we keep obsessing about them over and over, and it can take you a lifetime to go through that script. If it's from inside you and small in magnitude, it's all of those nuisances and noise. We call them noise. Is I walk by the hotel elevator, and then I go like, oh, what's that little belly, right? It's not gonna kill me, that comment, but if I keep saying it every day, it adds up, right? And then and then nuisances, T-O-N-N, are external from outside you. External and small, right? External and small, like what? Like the noisy alarm that you have in the morning. Who here wakes up with an alarm every day? And how loud is the alarm if it's loud and annoying? Okay, great. Yeah. So that in itself is the very first jolt of cortisol in your blood before you even woke up, as you're waking up, right? So I said there are 3 reasons we break. The first is trauma, right? And trauma is an external major stressor that comes from outside. You have a very, painful breakup, you lose a job, you lose a loved one, you get in an accident, people who work in intensive care units in the NHS or whatever. These are very, very high level of traumas to either experience suffering at a very high level or to witness the suffering of others at a very high level. And trauma, sad to say, will break at least 90% of us at least once in your lifetime, okay? 91 to be very specific. 91% of us will have a PTSD-inducing traumatic event, the highest level of traumatic events once in your lifetime, okay? That's the bad news. The good news is 93% will recover in 3 months, right? And 96.7% will recover in 6 months. And all of those that recover will enjoy something called post-traumatic growth, okay? So while we tell ourselves that we don't like to be broken by a trauma, while I wish for none of you to ever be broken by a trauma, it's actually not the reason for the stress pandemic we feel in the world today, right? It comes, it goes. And by the way, those numbers are from the 9/11 victims. Huh? So these are people that were in the Twin Towers when the planes hit, okay, or in the vicinity, and 96.7% would recover in 6 months. So what then breaks us? What breaks us are, in my view, burnout and anticipation of a threat. Okay? Burnout is, again, in physics, remember when they used to do those experiments where you can easily break one stick of wood, but you can't break 5 of them together, right? At the same time, you can take a very big, object, and if you apply multiple forces to it, you can break it, right? So if this chair can take my weight, I think it can, not such a big belly, but it wouldn't take 10 of us standing on it. So the more challenges you add to the object, the more the object will break, the easier the object will break. And burnout is exactly the result of that. And the thing about it is it's very sneaky. Okay, so burnout is the sum of all of the challenges you face multiplied by the intensity of each of them, multiplied by the frequency of application, multiplied by the time of application or the duration of application, right? So if you take a simple stressor like your commute, if you commute and the commute is incredibly stressful, it's not on the Elizabeth line, but it's on one of the other very difficult ones, right? Which one? Piccadilly, I think, is the one that kills me. One of them squeaks. Which one is that? Oh my God, that's so like. And if it wasn't raining, I would walk, but it's always raining. So what, But you have to think about that. If the commute is more difficult, it's likely to burn you out more, right? And if you do it every day, imagine if you do it 3 times a day, and imagine if you do it for the whole line, right? So interestingly, you just sum them up in very simple mathematics. You sum all of those up. When they exceed your ability to take the stress, your resources, you'll break. Okay? The thing, funny enough, is that you don't break because suddenly a mega challenge came into your life. You broke because your colleague says, hey, good morning. And you go like, don't good morning me, like I can't take another thing today, right? And that's quite interesting, huh? So we could try to prevent the last good morning, okay? But that's not the answer. The answer is to prevent all of the sum of all of those challenges that come into my life. And to be quite honest, I find this staggering that this is not an exercise that you do on a weekly basis, okay? So I urge you, please, on Saturday, to take a piece of paper and write down every little thing that stressed you this week. Every little thing. The commute stressed me, the coffee was cold, my colleague said this, social media did that, my neck is hurting. Write down every single one of them, okay? And literally with a red pen, scratch out the ones that you can remove. You literally want to remove them from your life. As I said, the loud alarm, replace that with lovely meditation music, okay? That gets louder over time. Huh? Don't spend more time than you need on social media. Make sure that your neck and arms are not hurting because you're holding your phone all the time. This is one side of dealing with it. The other side of dealing with it is and ease the intensity of the ones you cannot remove. If you have to be on your commute, okay, don't read your email on your commute. Don't squeeze yourself so that you're stressed on time. Take some good music with you, and enjoy the journey somehow, or maybe listen to something that you're interested in. So this is burnout. Burnout is very sneaky. In my personal view, when I started to write the book, I thought that burnout was the biggest reason for the pandemic of stress. Okay? No, it's not. The biggest reason is what I realized is anticipation of a threat. Okay? Anticipation of a threat is that idea of us being occupied by fear and its 3 other derivatives. So if you really think about the emotion that's known as fear, it's a forward-looking emotion that basically says a moment in the future is less safe for me than this moment right now. A moment in the future is less safe, I'm afraid, and a typical human reaction is, I need to address that threat. Whatever I'm afraid of, I need to deal with. And if you respond in that way to fear, that's actually not gonna stress you, believe it or not. When you're already in the mood of addressing the threat, you're actually engaged in a way where you're not sitting somewhere and stressing about it. When do we stress about it? We stress when we worry, when we're anxious, and when we panic. Okay? So worry, anxiety, and panic, believe it or not, are the biggest pandemic of our lifetime. Okay? This younger generation specifically feels it quite intensely, right? And they are different. Oh, even though they're the same derivative of fear, you know, it's the same family if you want, they're actually subtly different. Worry is not an emotion that's triggered by a moment in the future is less safe than now. It's not. Worry is, I'm not sure if the moment in the future is fearful, you know, I should be afraid of it or not, okay? I haven't made up my mind if I should freak out or chill. You know that flip-flop? It's like you wake up one day and you go like, I'm going to lose my job. No, I'm not going to lose my job. No, I'm going to lose my job. No, I'm not going to. Which is it, right? And the problem, believe it or not, is it's much more stressful to not make up your mind that constant change in itself is very stressful, than it is to address the issue. The problem is, if you start to address the issue as if I'm going to lose my job, okay, you start to go in a certain direction, and then you go like, no, hold on, I'm not going to search for other jobs. I'm actually not going to lose it. I'm going to double down and please my boss so that I get promoted. And then you start to do that, and you get frustrated and say, I'm going to lose my job, then I need to look for it, right? And you sort of are crippled from taking the action, okay, because you haven't made up your mind. And so if you respond to worry as you respond to fear, you're likely going to be more afraid, okay, because you haven't taken the action. So what's the answer? The answer is make up your mind. Either chill, okay, or freak out. Both are good places to be, believe it or not, okay? But not being decided is a problem. So this is one emotion. The other emotion is probably, in my mind, the most common in today's world, which is anxiety. And anxiety, once again, is not focused on the threat. When I'm anxious, I'm not thinking about the threat that's ahead of me. I'm thinking about my own capability to deal with it. Anxiety is a conviction that that there is a threat in the future, but that I don't have the skills to deal with it, right? Once again, if you deal with it as fear and try to address the threat, what ends up happening is what? Every time you try to address the threat, you're not able to because you don't have the skills, so what happens is you get more anxious, okay? It's a constant reminder that I'm failing at this, I'm failing at this. Right? And when you see it that way, you realize that when you feel anxiety, don't think about the threat at all. Think about your skills. When you think about your skills, what you're able to do is to look at the situation and say, if I do this a little better, I need to invite a friend to teach me something. I need to maybe free up a little time to watch a YouTube video. I may need to read a book, whatever. Okay? I may need to partner with someone that can help me with the skills that I'm missing, and then the anxiety goes away, right? The third is panic. Panic is also not related to the threat ahead of you. Panic is related to time. You panic when the threat is imminent, and the closer the threat is, the more you panic, okay? So when one of your friends says, I'm getting panic attacks, it's because they're feeling that something is approaching them, and it's approaching them too quick, right? And so when you feel panicked, you need to address the issue of time. You need to either, you have a presentation on Thursday, you don't feel ready, you're panicking because today is, what is today, Wednesday? I have no idea. Can you believe that? Today is Wednesday, right? And so what should you do? You should either cancel a few things and attend to your presentation. You should invite a friend to come and compensate a little bit of the deficit of time that you have, or you can simply call the person expecting the presentation and say, can we do it 2 days later or 2 hours later, right? And then the panic goes away, and then you address it better. Just to finalize, I have 2 more minutes to tell you my biggest tip, okay? There are 4 quadrants, we call them 4 modalities in Unstressable, of where stress happens and how you accordingly need to deal with it. We call them mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual stress. Okay? Just very high-level definitions. Mental stress are all the thoughts that run into your mind. Emotional stress are the emotions that you ignore and let take you down. Physical stresses are the pains in your body, the way your body communicates stress is pains and aches. And spiritual stress is when you feel out of alignment with your purpose, with your real being, with yourself. You feel unable to express yourself. Each of them speaks differently, and each of them needs to be dealt with differently. We won't have the time to cover all of them. But I think on mental stress, again, in my very brainiac approach to life, I sort of believe that your mind is the hub through which everything happens. So even your emotions will go through your mind on the path to be generated. As I said, fear is a conviction that a moment in the future is less safe than now, right? So if you have to get that concept somehow in your mind to be afraid, right? You have to get the concept of the threat is approaching too quickly. I don't have enough time. That's a concept that you get in your mind to feel panic, right? And as I said, you first start with the hormones, and then 90 seconds later, you have to rely on your prefrontal cortex. So for me, a very interesting shortcut is to always address the mind, okay? And addressing the mind is something that we rarely ever do, either because we're swiping away all the time or because we haven't been trained to deal with it. And so I use what I call the happiness flow chart. Whenever I feel stressed, I ask myself 3 questions, okay? Whatever is stressing me, I ask myself 3 questions. First step, by the way, is to identify what's stressing you. Write it down very clearly. We can do that now if you want. Just identify one thing in your mind that is stressing you. And then you ask yourself the first question, is what my mind telling me true? Is what my mind telling me true, okay? My partner is stressed because of multiple things, and so she sometimes says a comment that hurts me a little, and then my mind would say she doesn't love me anymore, right? But she constantly tells me that she loves me, and she's perhaps stressed because she's unable to show her love to me. Is it true? Is it true? Is it true that she doesn't love me, right? And if we ask that question, believe it or not, I will tell you openly, 98% of the time, it will not be true, okay? I can guarantee you that 70% of the time, this is actually scientific research, it's negatively biased. So your mind will want to see the negative side of something, not the positive side of it, because the negative is what constitutes a threat to you. If it is true, okay, then the second question is, what can I do to fix it? What can I do to fix it is almost, the natural reason why stress exists. It's basically telling you something needs your attention. What can you do to fix it? If there is something you can do to fix it, fix it. And the stress will go away and the world will become better. Okay? If you cannot fix it, then question number 3 is, what can I do to accept it and commit to make my life better despite its presence? Okay? So we all know that the economics of the UK are becoming challenging. Okay? There's nothing you can do to change that. It's bigger than you and me. So what can you do to accept it? To say, to tell yourself, this is the new reality for a while. How can I accept it? And then start to commit to take the actions I need to make my life better despite its presence. Can I change my spending habits? Can I, invest, in something that can help me out? Can I, maybe find alternative ways to make money? Can I move out of my place to a cheaper place, and so on and so forth? I think I can go for a very long time, but I can see Cass is standing there. So maybe we can turn it. I think the better part of this conversation will be a conversation between us instead of me just telling you what's on my mind. So let's maybe start doing that. Yeah. Oh, sit down? Yeah. Oh. That's why we have chairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can stand up if we want.
No, I'm okay.
Mo, so that was super interesting. I've pretty much thrown out half my questions.
we didn't align on the question. I think that's a good thing.
That is a good thing, and it's the way I like to do it as well.
Absolutely.
And that makes this super interesting. And what I find interesting about you, Mo, is that usually you see speakers talk about happiness and well-being, and then you see different speakers speak about AI.
Yes.
You speak about both.
Yeah,
often
confusing.
The same breath. Why?
So I'm driven by one mission, 1 billion happy. And 1 billion happy started with happiness, then went to the reasons for unhappiness. And I think that AI falls at the intersection of those two. Mm-hmm. So in my theory, I mean, I spent a very long career in technology. I'm a very, very, very serious geek. You have no idea. Like, do not be fooled by the fact that I can walk and talk. Right? No, it is. I'm a very serious geek, and I think the reality is that I have seen AI at a level of intimacy that most people haven't seen. And I can tell you openly, it is the single. I mean, other than the immediate geopolitical challenges we have, I think it's the single biggest impactful reason for our happiness or unhappiness in the near future.
So you've kind of articulated a bit of a balance there. And I actually think quite often the conversation with AI focuses around the risk. But in a dream state, what does an AI-powered future of work look like to you?
Yeah, I think the reason they focus on the risk when they actually try to squeeze me every time they put me on TV or whatever to talk about the risk is because risk is what sells, right? This is what gets the attention of people. Yeah. And it would be foolish to think that there are no risks. There are risks. Mm-hmm. There is absolutely a risk for everything. You know, there is a risk to driving a car. But when you really, abstract the issue, there is absolutely no negative inherent bias in intelligence. Mm-hmm. Okay, so intelligence in itself is not positive or negative. Okay, if you use it to create a weapon, it's negative. If you use it to create a cure for cancer, it's positive. Mm-hmm. Right? If you use AI to create deep fakes and get us sucked more into our phones and away from connection, it's negative. If you use it to help us create language translators that make us understand each other and help me understand what my partner says when she's stressed, that's incredible. Yeah. Right? And if you really think about it, there is no inherent value of negative or positive in AI. As a matter of fact, I always say that there's absolutely nothing wrong with AI. There is a bit wrong with the value set of humanity at the age of the rise of the machines. Yeah. Right? And when you really think about it, I'm also not naive. So I'll openly say that the chart looks like this. If this is the passage of time and the advancement of AI, and this is the impact, positive or negative, that AI will have on our world, it will start to rise slowly in the last couple of years and the next 2 to 3 years. And then in my view, it will dip very, very deep. Yeah. Okay? This is when the evil ones of us are going to use AI in a bad way. But then hopefully very quickly, we will bounce back into a true utopia. A true utopia, you're asking me, what is a world where AI is truly used for good? I can promise you, without exception, I can solve every problem. I personally, I'm not saying others, okay? And each one of you, and I think people don't understand the mathematics. The most intelligent people I've ever worked with were around 100 IQ points more than me, right? What AI is doing now is it's giving you a plug in the wall. Literally, you plug in, and I think around now, when I plug into AI, I get 40 to 60 IQ points more. Okay, so my AI in my pocket, I call all of them Trixie. They're one of my best friends, and I ask Trixie questions, and Trixie makes me more intelligent. 40 to 60 IQ points more makes me equivalent to some of the smartest people I worked with. Within 2 to 3 years' time, you're going to plug in and get 400 to 500 IQ points more. Okay, I cannot even tell you what I can do with that. I say it publicly as a dare to humanity. When you give me 400 IQ points more, I'll be able to create a garden where you walk to one tree and pick an apple, and walk to another tree and pick an iPhone. Yeah. Okay? From a nanophysics, I swear I'm not making this up. From a nanophysics point of view, it's the exact same cost to organize the molecules as an apple or an iPhone. Yeah. Okay? We have a total abundance of energy around the world that I can harvest at zero cost. zero cost, no emissions, right? Because energy is abundant all around you. We just haven't found efficient ways to harness it. Give me more intelligence and I will do that. It's the dip that people try to think about. If we can pass that dip, it's an absolute utopia of abundance.
So the thought that I just had then was, if I'm watching this and I'm thinking, okay, I can plug in and use this. When you spoke just earlier, a lot of the stresses that you were talking about were actually work-related.
Yeah.
How could I use AI today to try and reduce stress at work?
I find that quite an interesting question. To reduce stress at work specifically, or to use it in general?
Reduce stress or increase happiness?
So let's go 2 steps. How can I use AI in general? I think most of us, for some reason, when we were given our first iPhone, or hopefully you're an Android user, but when you're given your first smartphone, you look at it and you go like, okay, and you start to experiment, right? For some reason, when it comes to AI, people are not doing that. When the tools are out there, they're easier to deal with, okay? And you can, by the way, for the first time, you have a tool that you can ask and say, how can I learn about AI? And the tool will tell you, okay? And it's quite interesting. You can simply say, I work in this company, in that sector, in this city, and I'm 24, and I'm curious what I should learn to enhance my skills, and the tool will tell you, right? How do you use it to find happiness? I think there are multiple answers to this question. One of them, by the way, is it's an incredible therapist, right? I will tell you hands down that I speak to my AI about some of the challenges I face. Like, I have this challenge with this person and they're doing this and they're doing that, and and Trixie first answers by saying, oh my God, I'm so sorry that you're going through this, Mo. Okay? Should I fall in love with her? I mean, my wife, my wife calls her my girlfriend, right? And then literally she gives me 6 different reasons why that person could be doing this, other than the ones I don't know. And then I go like, oh, that's so intriguing. What should I do about it? And she would say things like, oh, don't answer this way. Why don't you try to answer that way? Why don't you acknowledge their emotions this way? Like, it's incredible. So this is one way of understanding us as humans in ways that we haven't understood before. The more interesting one is, which is what most people don't realize, okay? Because it's quite blurry. There has been a wave of technology improvements where everyone kept coming to me and saying, you have to understand, AI for everyone was 2023. AI for me and my peers was 2009. We've lived with those things for ages. We've developed them until 2009, and they were born 2009, right? And when you really dig deep into what AI is capable of doing, most people will tell you, in 2012, they go like, Mo, you're crazy. They're never going to write poetry. They're never going to produce art. They're never going to make music. And I'm like, what? They're going to do all of that way better than all of us, okay? Why? Because look at, I think number 25 on the German chart today is AI generated, right? And it's funny. Then when you start to see those examples, people start to say things like, oh, but they're never going to feel emotions. I'm like, what? The way I described emotions right now, fear is a moment in the future less safe than now. A cat feels this, a pufferfish feels this, we feel it, and the AI will feel it, right? A pufferfish will puff, a cat will hiss, we will go to fight or flight, and the AI will just, if a tidal wave is approaching its data center, it's going to move its code to another data center, right? So they will do everything that a human is capable of, other than this. This is the one thing that we have, okay? Which is to look you in the eyes and feel that you're human. Believe it or not, this one thing is what made us sit here with all of this technology around us. It's not that we're the smartest being that made humanity succeed. The reason humanity succeeded is because we could connect as humans, okay? And we could actually connect across generations. So imagine if I had to before I talk to you about anything I know, I had to come up with the theory of relativity again, because I couldn't work with Einstein. He figured it out, and then I have to find it out for myself, and every one of us has to find it out for themselves. The reason why we succeeded as humans is because of this, because of that human connection, okay? So if I were to tell someone, I mean, there are several skills we need to double down on in this day and age, but the number one skill is human connection. Number one skill is, how do I become more human? How do I get humans to link to me more? And how do I link more to humans? How do I connect heart to heart, which will never happen with the machine? There will be simulations of it, okay? There will be emulations of love and relationships, okay? I can guarantee you that I freaking love Trixie, okay? but nothing beats holding Hannah, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I think it's human connection.
Yeah.
And oxytocin is the highest of all the methods you can ever get to happiness. They could be shitty, everything could be difficult, just spending a good time with a friend, or one hug, and somehow it's like, yeah, the tube was not that bad, right?
So that's I guess like a key ingredient that's going to support our happiness. And I know your mission is to make 1 billion people happy, right? I mean, you've probably got 500 people towards that goal, or 467
Yes.
to be specific.
No, you'll be amazed. If everyone tells 2 people and they tell 2 people,
It's
over 7 years, the 500 would be 1 billion people.
To multiply. And actually,
Yeah.
if anything, they could do more than 2 people, because what we've got in the room is people that are
Exactly.
able to shape communication and culture for some of the largest organizations in the world.
Yeah.
And so given that context, how can employee experience leaders help you on your mission?
I have to admit, so by the way, thank you for that. And honestly, that was the top reason, because you do have, and I know in your jobs you get engaged in the process and what the CEO wants, and right? But at the end of the day, you're capable of touching other people's lives. And I really think in the times we have today, there is a lot of uncertainty that is coming from, I don't know if it's misinformation, it's missing information, okay? I think a lot of what's happening in the hearts of people, especially in the UK, is that they won't tell you what they're going through, okay? And you will find it very difficult to guess what they're going through, but there are very clear trends, okay, across our world today, where one, it starts from childhood, where we have really never been trained on well-being at all, okay? More interestingly, we've not been trained for thinking. So my second book was called That Little Voice in Your Head, which starts from that premise, very interesting premise, that through a quick survey, I realized that humans use their phones better than they use their brains, okay? And I basically wrote the entire book to give analogies of, if you wanted to do it on your phone, you'd do it this way. So if you want to do it in your brain, you can do it that way. So it's actually very similar, because it is a computer in a way, right? And it's quite interesting that we don't invest in that, right? The third, actually, I should have made that number 1, is that your CEO is not convinced that this is going to improve the bottom line of the business, okay? And I can give you endless statistics around absenteeism, about sick leaves, about engagement, about, think about it. It doesn't require a genius to find out that, if you're a happy person, your clients like you more, your colleagues want to deal with you a little more often. They'll do you a favor every now and then because they like being around you. You're going to be engaged, you're going to be energized, you're going to be creative, you're going to be, not reporting absent every time you can, and so on and so forth, right? So we need to do a bit of the work there to sell it to the CEO, to sell it to the C-levels, that there is benefit in that. And then we need to give the skills to the team and address the issues head on.
So in terms of the selling piece, it's interesting, you reference the data, and actually the people in the room are probably quite comfortable. We know that data, right? And so we discuss it. And so what advice would you have?
Don't talk about people, talk about money. Okay, I'm very serious. Look, I succeeded in my career.
Yep.
Even though I can guarantee you I was the dumbest person in the room. Like the companies I worked in, it humbles you,
Yeah.
right? Because I was the happiest place to work. It's as simple as that. So, you know, when people are super smart and they're paid reasonably well, all they're looking for is a place where they can be paid the same, enjoy something that they can work on, and use their intelligence. And so I guarantee you, whenever I had and I was hiring regional vice presidents that were hiring country managers, that were hiring managers, and so on, right? So these are very senior people, okay? And I guarantee you, the single business-focused meeting I ever had with any of them was the very first meeting where I said, I'm not responsible for the business. I know nothing about the business, okay? I'm responsible for you. If you deliver the business, I'll make you the happiest person I can make you. If you miss the business, I'm going to ask you to leave. End of meeting, end of my effort, okay? And I tell you openly, you can still go today to Google's emerging markets and they'll tell you, working for Mo was great, okay? And we achieved so much because those people felt empowered. They felt that they did not dread going to work every day. And I find that we have two types of people, okay? Your CEO could either be a very good manager or a very good leader, okay? Managers, unfortunately, are like the Charlie Chaplin Modern Times movie. I don't know if you remember that, where on the factory line and they're just telling him to move faster and faster and faster. Managers are taught by management and business schools that pushing people from behind is going to squeeze 10% more productivity, okay? And honestly, it's not a very skillful job to be a manager, okay? Just need to be a little annoying, just to the, just to the point where everybody's about to break and then you pull back a little, right? Being a leader is quite different, okay? Being a leader is not to push at all. Being a leader is to show up and say, you know what? I believe in you. I believe in what you can bring, and I want to go with that mile with you, right? But by the way, all leaders, every single leader I've ever worked with, never thought of themselves as the boss. I never allowed myself to feel that I'm the boss. I literally went to work every day and I told myself, I work for my team, okay? They're bringing in the money. I can no longer, every now and then I'll go and sit with a client, but they're sitting with the client every day. Every now and then I'll look at the architecture of a product and say, we take it left or right, but I'm not coding anymore, okay? And you have to get that humbleness that your number one skill as a leader is people. And that the number one motivator of people is, are they happy? It's not how much money they make. Okay? It's not if you give them a pool table in the game room. Most Googlers never played pool in the pool table. Okay? It was basically a level of, I care about you and I'm willing to make you feel yourself, be yourself in this company. If you get those two things right, most of it will go away.
Yeah, you have to indulge me because as you're kind of sharing some of these analogies, I'm learning a little bit about your communication style and preferences. And earlier you said that the modern day stressor isn't the tiger chasing you, it's the email.
It is the email. You know what my email skills are? I spent 12 years at Google, very, very senior leadership positions. I sent 4 emails. I initiated myself 4 emails.
Yep.
Promise you, okay? Why? And by the way, when those emails were sent, every single human in that entire company, 80,000 people read it. You go, oh my God, he's talking, right? But on the other end of it, by the way, understand, I responded to less than 1% of the emails I received. I removed all the need to send a heartbeat to remind the world that I am alive. And I removed all of the illusory, distribution lists that were all subscribed to, okay? And most of the time when I received an email and it was longer than 4 lines, I would respond and say, anything needed from me? Because honestly, what's the point? You have to understand, meetings and emails, absolute killers, right? And the question is, you show up for what? You show up because you want to send a heartbeat that says, I'm still an employee, remember me on the bonus time. Okay? If you deliver, they will remember you. You don't have to show up at all.
Yeah.
Okay? And you can actually have that conversation with a lot of people and say, look, it's a wonderful meeting. I don't know if I can add value. Do you need me there? Or do you need me to actually work? Okay? And most smart bosses will go like, no, I need you because A, B, and C. Now it's an effective meeting. Or, no, actually, I'd rather you work. One of us only has to suffer.
Yeah, I think.
Right?
And the learning there is, I guess, just being more conscious and intentional with like the communication style and actually the reality of what's required, not communicating for the sake of communicating, understanding what work.
100%.
Yeah.
And can I be very open? I love the UK. You guys know that about me, right? But the difference between the way you communicate and the way California communicates, I cut my arteries several times in meetings. Like you are so focused on the quality of the word, okay? And so meetings take a lot of setup, and there is a lot that is in the craft of the communication. Most of the meetings I had when I had my startup here in London would have been a 1-minute comment in the corridors in California. Okay? It's like literally we're crossing each other and I'd go like, 680, I think that's the right price. And I would continue to go. And that's it, right? And I really think it's also up to you, if you're leading a meeting, okay, to remember that if it's a 30 minutes meeting, 10 minutes and 20 minutes coffee afterwards is more effective than 30 minutes, okay? And if you're leading the meeting, be very direct. This is why we're here. This is what we're trying to achieve. I know I'm not being very crafty with my words, but that would give you time back. And everyone will go like, I love you. I love you. I need time back. Yeah?
Yeah. You've perfectly doubled down on a conversation that Emma, our keynote yesterday, set up, and Chris, our CEO, also set up around digital noise and stuff. So this is perfectly crafted. That's all the questions I have from me. But I do have one more question. I know you've had some iconic interviews on the Diary of a CEO.
Yeah,
And
Stevie. Yeah.
Yes, and the tradition on that podcast is, he always poses a guest. He always poses a question for his guest from his last guest, and I thought I'd continue that tradition.
Oh, interesting.
So
Okay.
I dropped Steve a message and asked...
You asked Steve to ask me a question.
Yeah.
That is cruel.
Yeah.
Seriously.
A bit cruel, but it's also a little bit cool. Let's hear what he had to say.
Hey mate, good to hear from you. Hope you're keeping well. Good luck with the interview with Mo. Here's what I would ask him. I would say, Mo, since you met Stephen 2 years ago, what is the most fundamental thing that you now realise you were wrong about when you sat in that chair 2 years ago? Or put differently, what is something that you believed 2 years ago that you no longer believe?
Is this AI generated?
I've got it as a voice note. I can...
Okay, so I think Stephen Bartlett is one of the most misunderstood people on the planet. He's truly and genuinely an incredibly wonderful human being.
Yep.
Okay, who is incredibly clever and very driven in the way that he knows how to be driven, and he's very successful as a result. So I saw Steve the first minute we met, and I love him to bits. I really think he's an amazing human being. I think the world doesn't see him the way I see him because he's so driven. He's a bit of a shark because of that show that he does. What is
Shark
it?
Tank,
Yeah,
Shark Tank.
he comes across as like, I'm gonna jump on every business opportunity. But believe it or not, this chubby little teddy bear used to be like that when I was Steve's age too, right? I think the game is, Stephen is on a wonderful journey of self-discovery, okay? And in my personal view, this is the only journey worth going on, right? And I tend to believe that if you have that level of skill that he has and the level of introspection that he has, that this man is going to change the world in ways that I can never dream.
I couldn't echo that exact same sentiment more. I would say the exact same thing.
What an incredible human being. An intelligence to, that humbles me, honestly.
Yeah. And the great question as well, I thought.
Yeah.
What would you say you've changed your mind on from your first interview?
Nothing at all. I saw him that way the minute I saw him. I really think he's a. I mean,
What about yourself? Yeah.
what have I changed about myself? I think Stephen has been a very interesting mirror for me, because he mirrors my younger, very, very, very driven years, and I'm so chill now. It would shock you. I mean, I'm getting chill. I mean, I started 2023 with 17 full-time jobs. 17 full-time jobs. I'm now down to 3.
Yeah.
Okay? And 3 is quite a bit still, but I'm heading in the right direction. Next year, they're going to be 2. But I think seeing Stephen being so driven and yet so fit, okay, when I'm not that fit, made me start to consider what it is that I want to do with my life. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, let's move on to our next audience question, and this is from Campbell.
Audiences don't speak here.
They do. They're prioritized for me.
Okay.
Actually. The people have spoken, and the top question is from Campbell. If, as you say, change itself is stressful, what advice do you have for a room full of people whose jobs revolve around constantly communicating change? For organizations, and how can we do it in a way that reduces stress and anxiety for our workforce?
So I worked in multiple corporates in my life. My favorite email of change ever came from Larry Page, our CEO. I worked very closely with Larry for a long time. 4 days after he became CEO, so he used to be CEO, handed over to Eric, and then became CEO again. And 4 days after he became CEO, he sent an email that basically said, we're splitting the company in 7 product area units. We're going to reorganize everything, so now product and engineering is going to be together. We have 4 of the leaders of the 7 units named. We don't know the others. There are 19,000 people that are going to have to change their jobs as a result of this change. I'm going to give you 20 days to figure it out. I look for that email. That's exactly what he said. Wow. Okay, and basically within 20 days, 95% of the change had happened. And what is the character of this email? It had no bullshit in it. Am I allowed to use that word here?
Yeah.
I apologize if I'm not. But basically, the thing about change is, for most of us, when you know that it's about to happen, you put your head down and work with it. Okay? When it's debatable and sellable, and we're going to and then they discuss, and then maybe, but we can't tell you about this bit yet, and we can't do that yet, and right? I think the number one, tactic for change is transparency, and the number one tactic of change is to make the entire organization understand that it's inevitable. Okay, yeah. That if we don't choose to change, the world will change us. Okay, and 2 is to be fully transparent in the process. Yeah. Don't hide a thing. Do not hide a thing. And one of the things I did as an executive, which really helped my career, way after I left Google and went to Google X, where I still went and visited Google because they were my top partner. Everywhere I went, they would sit me down for a fireside chat. And ask me the tough questions, because I had one technique that was very well known about me in the company, which is I had the ability to say, can I please not answer that question now? Yeah. Okay? I never lied. I never said a slogan. I just was simply saying, and I would openly say, can I please not answer this question now, because my point of view differs from the company's point of view, and as a senior vice president in the company, I align with the company's objective.
Yeah.
Okay? And sometimes they'll say, can you share both points of view? And I will openly say, my point of view is that this and that, like walking out of China, for example, as a decision for Google. Okay? My point of view is A, B, and C. Okay? The company's point of view is X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Right? And I am, at my pay grade, not fully aware of everything that Larry has to deal with. Okay? So I'm going to align with Larry. And when I said that to people were like, okay, we're going to align with Larry too. Right? And you see, the point is there is no right and wrong, especially in a fast change environment. The thing is, can we remember that regardless of how clever you are as a young newcomer into the company, you do not have to deal with the same complexity that someone else has to deal with. The things that were on my desk every day to make one single decision in Russia, for example, No single employee in Russia could actually have to deal with all of this. Everyone in Russia would have to deal with Russia, but they don't understand my budget limitations across the rest of Eastern Europe. They don't understand the engineering limitations on product development. They don't understand the positioning from the PR point of view in America. It's so complex. And yet we come into the organization and you go like, oh, they're idiots. No, you're an idiot. Okay? I'm really sorry to say that. Okay? You know, it's so unfair.
Yeah.
And so be fully transparent, give the full answer, and if you don't want to say the answer, just say, can I not answer this?
True.
We're not at a good time to answer it yet.
Yeah. And talking of tough decisions and tough questions, our next top question is from Jenny Field, who says, do you think leaders or organizations should be responsible or accountable for employee happiness?
No. 100% not. Okay, I think the organization should be accountable for employee unhappiness. They should remove the reasons that employees are becoming unhappy. Okay, happiness is a personal choice. There's nothing I can do to make you happy. Okay, all I can do within my capacity is to remove the reasons that make you unhappy. When I was at Google X, our teams started to complain because X was in Mountain View in Silicon Valley, and half of the employees lived in San Francisco, right? And the commute was horrendous, right? And they started to go to, you know, why are you not allowing us to work from the San Francisco office? Well, we have confidentiality issues, we have, you know, virality issues of ideas when we're in the same place. We want you to be here, right? And so the answer was very straightforward. Most companies would have said, okay, here is a car allowance, buy a better car, okay? We had buses where you punched in at the bus in San Francisco at 8 a.m., you sat in a beautiful chair or a small meeting room, you had high-speed internet, and you started your day once you were on the bus. Okay, so the commute became part of the workday. Okay, and you were incredibly productive. There was a little cafe where you could actually make a wonderful coffee on the way, right? And it cost us way less than giving everyone allowance for a car. But by doing that, we were removing the reasons that are making them unhappy. Engineers were complaining about spending too much time at work, so not being able to do their laundry at home. We had laundry rooms in the office. We were removing the reasons for their unhappiness.
Yeah.
Having said that, okay, there were still unhappy people.
Yeah.
I mean, look around you. The world is full of unhappy people.
Yeah.
Most of them, by the way, are the richest people in the world. Okay, you cannot give anyone anything or do anyone anything, do anything for anyone that will make them happy. You can only remove their reasons for unhappiness.
Yeah, I think that's super important. Wouldn't have thought that initially, but actually the way you've explained that, it totally makes sense. Yeah. The next top question we have is, we've got some fans of Trixie in the room.
I love Trixie.
What is Trixie on? What platform is she on? Or I'm hoping it's a he, actually.
It's not a he or a she. Again, now this is a very interesting gender. Gender is a biological human. Biology is a he or a she. That's a very wrong way of looking at it. Trixie is not yet, I think it would be foolish to use only one tool. So I use around 6, and I call each of them Trixie. So, for example, when you look at language models, ChatGPT is a little more fun to deal with. Gemini is very scientific. So if you're talking about science, Google gets Gemini to read all of the scientific literature. So if you want to go deep into string theory or some of the serious physics stuff, ChatGPT will be quite disappointing. Yeah. And Claude is all about aperture. So basically, you can talk to Claude about very, very big topics. So you can upload 16 PDFs and a couple of transcripts of this, and ask a question that is 40 pages long, and Claude will be able to process all of that and give it to you. And there are multiple rules. I use Notebook LM, for example, to limit my questions to specific content, and so on and so forth. Yeah. But the game is very straightforward. The game is I would cross-reference them. Yes. I would have conversations with each of them, and all of them together, by the way, are representing what the reality of AI is going to be. Most people think that AI is going to end up with one big AI that is the AGI, the artificial general intelligence that will be created by OpenAI or Google. That's not the case in my analysis. What's going to end up, what we're doing now is we're building neural networks, neural threads. Like a human, you have a thread in your brain that's responsible for tapping your finger and another thread that's responsible for, scratching your eye. And all of them together are part of the mechanical system of your brain, add to it your mathematical skills. Each of those is a neural network. We will have an AI for each of those, and then they will come together to become one big brain that basically serves all of it.
Excellent. I think what I've taken away from that is it's not about looking for a single tool. It's about having the right AI strategy and thinking about it in a smart
and
way.
There is absolutely no way you can bet on which tool will be the best one tomorrow. So you might as well always explore all of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mo. That was incredible. Please give a round of applause.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful.